We continue along with our Locked On crossover episode of Locked On Ducks and Locked On Buckeyes. Spencer McLaughlin, Jay Stevens with you here on the show. Jay, the last three times that Oregon and Ohio State have met, I don't actually know. I haven't checked if there was a meeting before the 2009 Rose Bowl game, but we'll keep it in the realm of games that I've actually watched and been alive for and whatnot. The 2009 Rose Bowl, the 2014 National Championship, the 2021 non-conference matchup in Columbus. This is the first Big Ten matchup and not the last one between these two storied programs. Is the running game going to decide it again? Is it really that simple? Because in all three of those games, the team that runs for more yards wins the football game. Ohio State quarterback C.J. Stroud in 2021 went for, I think it was 485.
Yes,
I think it was 485 and 3 touchdowns with 1 interception, and yet Oregon won the football game. So is that how you see this one playing out, where it's whoever runs for more yards, they're going to win again?
Absolutely, 100%. And we talked about that game where C.J. Verdell might still be running because Ohio State couldn't stop him.
Indeed.
If you go back even before that, it's the same thing in the national championship game. Ezekiel Elliott's 3-game run that year was phenomenal. It was capped off by the national championship win over the Ducks. Ezekiel Elliott was a big reason why, and his feet on the ground running the ball was a major factor. And I do believe this
Oregon couldn't tackle him. They couldn't tackle him. They couldn't tackle Cardale Jones. Even when they were in position, they just ran through him.
They couldn't tackle anybody that day. And I do think it's going to be the same thing for Jordan James at Oregon. And I'm not trying to go with the Oregon side completely here, but that game against Michigan State's run defense, which I don't think gets enough credit for how good it is. It's just, you got Ohio State, and you play Oregon a couple days later, you're going to look bad. And that's exactly what happened. But Jordan James, that was a great way to build confidence before going up against Ohio State's rush defense, which is one of the best in the country. On the flip side, on the Ohio State side, it's the same thing. You don't bring in Judkins and keep Henderson without realizing those two guys, that combination is going to be needed to win big games like this. I'm going to throw a nerd note at you because I did actually look this up after you said the team that wins the rush battle is 3-0 in the past 3 meetings. I went back and did a little digging. Ohio State and Oregon have played 10 times.
I pulled that one up as well. It's not a good ratio for Oregon, by the way.
The only game where I couldn't find a box score was the first time in 1958 where Ohio State happened to win the national championship that year. Or 57, excuse me. I couldn't find a box score. But in the other 9 games, you're correct. Once again, the team that won the rush battle won the game, which was a lot of Ohio State wins. I'll just throw that out there for what it's worth. Ohio State holds the series lead 9-1, and that one loss was a bad one. I don't care what the margin of victory, what the margin was. That was bad, bro. Oregon just dominated. Stroud did his thing, but when you can't set the edge, Zach Harrison looks foolish. We're here to talk about it still right now.
Yeah, Joe Moorhead ran the same play or concept over and over and over. And Joel Klatt, I remember listening to him on the broadcast, was just like, this is the same thing. They're just cracking with the receiver or tight end, and there's no one dropping off, and there's no one that he did it, I think, 3 times for a touchdown, one of which was on a 4th and 1. But yeah, first meeting 1957 per the Oregon Sports Information website, and in the first 6 matchups, by the way, Oregon's point totals, and Duck fans hope that it'll be better than this. 1957, 7 points. 61, 12 points. 62, 7 points. 67, 0. 68, 6 points. 83, 6 points. I think we'll see more points than that for both teams in this game, Jay, because these are 2 of the best receiving corps in the country. We've talked about the quarterback's imperfections, but overall success running their offenses this year. They are experienced veteran guys. Yeah, Autzon's going to be rocking, might be the biggest crowd ever in the history of Oregon football, but Will Howard has seen a thing or two. He's been around. He's played in some big-time games, and Dylan Gabriel has played in some big-time games with high expectations as well. But I don't think points are going to be easy to come by, and that reasoning is twofold. Number one, you have a couple teams that are committed to running the football.
Yes.
Oregon went for 150 yards with Jordan James in the first half last week against Michigan State, and that was a really encouraging thing for the Ducks because they'd run the ball well this year, but there hadn't been a game like that where it felt like the running game was carrying the offense, where they were creating explosive plays. They finally got those last time out against Michigan State. So that's the first thing. And Ohio State, of course, with Chip Kelly and Ryan Day, they want to run the football. And that's been the foundation of everything they've kind of done offensively this year. But the second thing, I am bullish on these two defenses. I think both teams have a better defense than they do offense. Correct me if I'm wrong there on Ohio State. But Oregon's defense on the whole this season, save for the Boise State game where Ashton Genty is, he's an alien and just the most absurd type of alien.
Well, you're going to be going up against the alien on Saturday night because Jeremiah Smith is one as well.
Yeah, I know. This is the best backfield Oregon will face all year in terms of a tandem. Genty, I think, is still the best running back in all of college football. But aside from that particular game, Oregon's defense has played phenomenally well, even better than the numbers indicate. 13 points against UCLA, 7 of that was a pick six. 10 points against Michigan State, starters did not allow a touchdown. They're playing really well. So run game commitment, defenses, I think both teams stay under 30 points here.
Whew, that's a big statement because my gut has been telling me one of the two teams would go a tick over 30 points. Because I think a late touchdown is what's going to separate these teams later in this game. But also, with the way the defenses have played, as much as I was saying earlier about how Jordan James built confidence last week for this game, Ohio State's defense built confidence because they shut down Caleb Johnson a week ago. He scored a touchdown, had a couple runs of longer than 20 yards, which were when the
That's Iowa's running back, for those who don't know.
Yes. He scored. He had a couple long runs. That all came when the starters weren't on the field. So, yeah, Jordan James is building confidence for the Duck fans. But Buckeye fans should be very confident in the run defense, the run stoppability of Ohio State's defense this weekend. Difference is, ran a lot of 4-3 last week. I don't think that's going to be the same thing this weekend. So, was it a 4-3 situation last weekend? And will the 4-2-5 be able to stop the run this weekend? I think it will be able to. Because with Jordan Hancock playing the nickel, I do think he is a guy that's a corner that's not afraid to get his nose dirty, to stick his head in there and make a few tackles in the run game, which I think is going to be very key. He's one of my guys on the defense I'm keying on. If he plays big, Ohio State will probably win this game.
When I think about position groups that are going to define the game, you can go individual player matchups within these groups, but to me, the number one thing for Oregon's defense, the defensive line, and especially the linebacker unit, and I think that's where I go, has to be on top of their game. Because Oregon as well likes to run a base personnel with a nickel back on the field. And that gives you a 6-man box, or you can go 7-man box, but one guy in there is a defensive back. Jeffrey Bassa for Oregon, starting middle linebacker, 4th-year starter, has to play a big role in this game. I think the Oregon linebackers against the Ohio State running backs are the biggest matchup here, because as good as Oregon's secondary has been this year, I've been really impressed. They are yet to have a quarterback throw for 200 yards in a game so far this season. The secondary and the defensive line, they're playing great complementary football. I think that can change, though, because if Ohio State gets their momentum rolling on the ground, tackles aren't being made, or they're just able to find a lot of success in that realm, I think Chip Kelly, with the way he's called plays, he'll say, I'm going to do this until you stop it. Correct. And you are going to be annoyed with this particular concept or player formation or whatever until you show me you can do this. And then Oregon might have to play a chess game of, all right, let's bring an extra guy down to the box. Jeremiah Smith is one-on-one on the outside. I trust Jabbar Muhammad. He's not perfect, but he's good. I don't know how much faith I have in 1v1 shots down the field against Nico Reed or Dante Manning for a couple of NFL wide receivers.
This is one of those games, you mentioned Chip Kelly, where I think the chess match might be trying to figure out how often he can use two backs on the field at the same time. Because so far, there's been a spot here or a spot there where Ohio State has used both Judkins and Henderson on the field at the same time, but it hasn't been consistent. And it wouldn't shock me if Ohio State rolls out there on Saturday night and you got your 3 receivers and no tight end, and you got 2 backs in the backfield, and you got Judkins on one side and Henderson on the other. That's a straight nightmare, because you're used to Ohio State's tight ends being able to block very well, and they really haven't been much of the pass game at all this year. Primarily, they've been blockers and doing a great job at it. But if Chip Kelly can find a way to consistently keep Judkins and Henderson on the field and get them involved in the run game consistently, I don't know if Oregon has an answer for that.
answer. If you can run the football at will and use that to set up the play action, Ohio State's used a lot of pistol this year, and that does allow for the quarterback to pull it out of the running back's stomach and run the football. And Will Howard, he's no Avery Johnson at Kansas State or Marcus Mariota or anything, but he's certainly a capable runner. I wonder this about both offensive coordinators, and I want your thoughts real quickly before we move into segment number 3. I wonder if both offensive coordinators don't incorporate the quarterback run more than they have in past weeks. Oregon's done it once, really just once, and it wasn't in a huge way against Oregon State. They hit a big play on it, and they used it a little against UCLA. I wonder if both offensive coordinators don't have things up their sleeves that we haven't seen so far, and if those don't involve the quarterback run game.
I think, yes, for both teams, that the thought is there. I also don't know if both teams need to. As great of a weapon as it is, why do that when the guys in the backfield are getting the job done? If you're showing me on either team that your running backs can get the job done consistently, sometimes using the quarterback run can be a bad call. Ohio State ran into that last weekend against Iowa. Used Will Howard on 4th and 2. I thought it was a dumb call in the moment. Looking back, I don't think that was a good call at all. It's one of those chess pieces where, do you really want to do that? Yeah, everybody wants Ohio State's quarterbacks to be more mobile, to run a little bit more. But I think the better guys to get the ball to are behind the quarterbacks, not the quarterbacks themselves when it comes to running the ball consistently.